really high quality stuff, go out, check it out, find out the right sea salts, some of the right other salts that do have the elemental iodine in there. The problem is it binds up to things. It's very, iodine's purple-blue, folks. It's not red. And in groups, iodine turns blue. The stuff at the store turns red. Okay, and again, that's because the stuff he gets is so pure, he has a special lab that the DEA has a license for. It's inside a vault, because this stuff, you put it on the ground, it eats through it like alien blood, blue smoke like I Dream of Jeannie comes up. I mean, it's true. I mean, we have video, we probably show people he's having there of the X2, and you told me, you said you said you're going to detox about 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to feel really crappy for a couple of days, and you're probably going to have a bunch of stuff come out of your skin and all this other stuff. Man, I broke out about 3 weeks into it, had oil coming out my scalp, has some really bizarre bowel movements. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. And then it was like when you're carrying your kid on your shoulder up a big hill, when you get to take them off, you feel like you're flying. All of a sudden, it was like, boom, started losing weight, all this energy, I guess because the iodine was sucking garbage out. Tell folks more about it.
Well, that just goes to show you that the iodine is going to, everybody's different. So depending on who you are and what kind of problems you have, if you look at all the health supplements on InfoWarsLife.com and you read the reviews, you'll find the most broad spectrum reviews on the Survival Shield X2 because it works on so many different things. Talking about pregnant women being deficient, the National Institute of Health just came out with an article the other day saying iodine deficiency may reduce pregnancy chances. So now all the things that we've been saying for the last 10 years are actually coming out in the mainstream as far as pregnancy, mental retardation. They knew that pregnant women need twice as much iodine than non-pregnant women, so they should be supplementing iodine for pregnant women. They are tracing back autism, mental retardation, mental problems, nervous system problems, heart problems, glandular problems with iodine deficiency. And you're only going to see more and more and more of these things come out in the future. That's why it's my #1 product that I take, and the #1 product I think pretty much everybody out there should take. I touched on it a little bit earlier with what's going on with Fukushima, with all of the nuclear reactors breaking down. That has been an area that you can type in and you can do some research on that's not being talked about in the mainstream media. But there are literally clouds of radioactive iodine-131 over different parts of Russia. They're handing out potassium iodine pills in Belgium.
Exactly. My wife couldn't get pregnant. We wanted a baby. Until I just said, she's like, look, I'm healthy. I eat seafood. I don't need this. And I said, listen, start taking it. 2 months later, pregnant. And we tried for like a year. I mean, it was a boom. I mean, it's incredible when people are deficient. It's just it's the things it does.
So, and one thing that's really popular with the iodine is how it brings back your memory and your focus. Because as you're
it gets me high. I'm like, why do this is better than a cup of coffee. I'm like, why do a lot of days I forget to take it. And you can't take too much. You need to talk to your physician, right? Because the dose we have on there is a decent dose, but you might want to try a little bit lower at first.
Yeah, you want it because of the detoxification. I mean, you're going to be pulling out chemicals and possibly heavy metals and other things like that.
So what's it do? Bind to it? Because it was like...
Well, the first thing it does,
because I hadn't had oil and stuff since I was like a teenager, and it was like coming out everywhere.
So all those toxins, especially the other toxic halides, the fluoride, bromine, and chlorine, those all get sucked in because the body can't tell the difference between those and iodine. So those get sucked into your glandular tissue. So when you start taking iodine, then the iodine starts going into those tissues.
So this is almost like STP fuel cleaner. Even you put the old carburetor.
It's actually the good one. Let's say you're putting toxic fuel cleaner in there for years and years and breaking everything down and altering the body's biochemistry. Now you're putting the clean. It's like dirty water versus clean water.
All right, we'll be back. This is so key. Stay with us.
The New World Order, put simply, a conglomerate of multinational financial interests and its subsequent intelligentsia bent on undermining the self-determination of sovereign nations by any means necessary. Now, the steady rise of populism has the globalists crying from the rooftops. Former Senator and U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel was recently quoted by the Lincoln Journal-Star saying, "A new world order is being built and shaped right now. And the last time that happened, America led."
We've done the hard work of freedom, and tonight we lead the world in facing down a threat to decency and humanity. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future.
Hagel claims the Trump administration's withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement did significant damage to long-term U.S. power and influence in Asia, while damaging the interests of U.S. farmers and ranchers. The reality is, had the United States signed on to the TPP would have obliterated sovereignty in favor of multinational corporate looting and ushered in a technocratic nightmare. Meanwhile, George Soros grapples with defeat after dropping $18 billion on his Open Society foundations to undermine Western civilization. Soros, complaining to the Financial Times, said, "It's deja vu all over again with one big change. The dominant ideology in the world now is nationalism. It's the EU that's the institution that's on the verge of a breakdown." As German Chancellor Angela Merkel's future looks bleak, French President Macron is being lauded as the Hegelian hero of EU history by the EU Observer. Yet Macron's approval continues to stagnate behind policies such as pushing carbon taxes at the borders. And the PSYOP intensifies from the globalist mouthpiece of the Council of Foreign Relations, signaling the coming wave of hypocrisy to once again attempt to sway the masses. Clifford Cunningham writes, a summary of the report released by Freedom House, a supposedly nonpartisan think tank, has placed blame for the global assault on democracy on President Trump's attacks on the press and brash foreign policy as America's democratic standards, quote, erode at an accelerating pace, end quote. On January 24th, President Trump's populism will face the New World Order at Ground Zero in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, revealing a parade of elitists drowning under a tsunami of populism, with tentacles that own the media, reach into the deep state, and continue to dump billions into a money pit of treason. John Bound reporting for INFOWARS.com.
For humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back live. We got a real treat for you here. The Health Ranger, one of the biggest health sites out there on the web, prolific filmmaker, author, you name it, ride the shotgun. He hadn't been here in a couple of years because he quit doing a lot of media interviews. He said, Alex, I'm setting up my research farm. I'm setting up one of the biggest research labs with all the top certifications. In fact, I was reading, for private labs, you've got more certifications than almost anybody else. The type of testing you can do, you're now doing it for a lot of big companies and things. We're really, really excited. And you can also then double-check the tests that these law firms and groups do out in California and keep getting these positive tests, even when other third-party labs aren't getting that. Very interesting. So we're going to talk about that some. But I just wanted to welcome you back here. Now that you got your lab up and going and tested over several years, naturalnews.com. And, of course, Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, is the editor of naturalnews.com, well-known writer of topics of natural health nutrition, reversing serious disease with the use of plant-based medicines, and he's here with us. But I want to just show everybody something first, because I thought about this last week when I called and asked you guys to come in. I said, you ready to come back in? You're like, yeah. What Dr. Group's talking about, what you've been talking about, when I get up here and I plug something, it's because I deeply believe in it. And we've been trying for years, going back 5 years ago, to come out with an iodine that was palatable and not toxic like they put out in the stores. But since we've been promoting true nascent atomic iodine, suddenly you see it everywhere. It's being added to supplements, but it's not really the high-quality iodine, which again, I want competitors. I just want you to know we've been trailblazing with Dr. Group and others to where now you didn't used to go to the store and see colloidal silver. You didn't used to go to the store and see iodine. It's there because the listeners and others have taken action and people have discovered it. But we're not the ones that discovered it. This is National Institutes of Health. Now, you type in iodine deficiency women, pregnancy, losing their babies, and let's do a wide shot real quick so we can see our guest. Thanks. And they don't tell you this. It's all government stuff and BS up top, but then all the government's real info is buried by Google now. Iodine deficiency may reduce pregnancy chances, NIH study suggests. Fallout from nuclear button tweak jumps the sales of radiation drug when it isn't even the right kind. On and on and on. So this is right here that birth defects, low IQs, not being able to get pregnant, iodine, just one area. And they will not tell. I mean, the government does the studies and admits it. Okay, fluoride brain damages you. Harvard says you take it out of the water. They won't do it. So welcome back. Wanted to just set the table with that. X2, fund the operation, fund the info. We're kind of doing a drive today to raise money for the operation. Get something you need. If you haven't taken the iodine, you're crazy. InfoWarsStore.com. Thank you all for your support, but I'm ranting. You can get it at its regular price or get it 40% off when you get it with Secret 12, our high-quality methylcobalamin, vitamin B12 at InfoWarsStore.com. So, Mike, I'm going to let you guys really go here coming up, or I'm going to do my old interrupt and take over. But I'm just get excited by realizing we have the answers, and we don't even crow about it enough. This is how we're going to break the globalists back. So good to have you back.
It's great to be back, Alex.
You bet.
It's been a few years. I really appreciate the invite. Just to establish a little bit of background. So, yeah, my lab has been running now 4 years. We're ISO accredited, which is a 2-year audit process. We're a mainstream lab. One of the science papers that I'm a co-author of was one of the top read papers last year in a journal called LCGC. It's about chromatography. We have 3 mass spec instruments. I've got 3 scientists and chemists at the lab, and we require everybody in my lab to be proficient in firearms to work there. So we are actually a pro Second Amendment science lab, which I think we're the only one in America like that, by the way. But we do really good science. We publish papers, we publish posters, they're featured everywhere. And we can now analyze anything, almost anything, whether it's food, environmental samples, nutritional supplements. We can identify unknown molecules using mass spec instrumentation. So we can look at heavy metals, or we can look at pesticides, or we can certify products to be have a lack of pesticides. And the big news of what we're seeing now, Alex, is that you know how the mainstream media is infecting people's minds with all this hate, all this bad information. You know, the CNN, they've become journo terrorists. They're just infiltrating people's minds, you know, with false information. That would not be possible unless people were also being poisoned and kept nutritionally deficient. So what you just mentioned is right, exactly on track. It's the deficiency, it's the poisoning of the food supply, and maybe we can talk about the biosludge thing. It's the poisoning of the vaccines, which they're pushing very heavily right now because of the whole flu push, combined with the information war of the mainstream media. It's a binary weapon system, Alex. That's what's being pushed by the mainstream.
Wow, Mike Adams, again, a few years ago said, listen, I built the lab. I got to get into this full-time. I'm cutting back on interviews, but I'll be back. And bam, back. And CWClabs.com, highly respected, some of the most intensive wide-spectrum analysis out there. And we use some of the top labs in the country as well that have given us great results. And he's tested our stuff and found the same results that don't match up with the latest test out of California. What a surprise. We'll be back. Well, the Health Ranger is back, and he's on fire with Dr. Edward Group. This is a live global transmission. Gentlemen, I'm going to turn things over to you because I know with your spectrometers and analysis, you're also looking into the vaccines, which have governmental protection, which they say when you try to study them. I know they threaten to sue you, saying don't look at what's in them, but sorry, you found the mutagens. So one of the top labs in the country, got all these scientists hired working there, highly respected, 4 years, in the making, been up and running a few years. We're going to do that next segment. But right now, let's continue just into whatever you want to get into first. Your biosludge documentary, this is huge.
Well, yeah, okay, so biosludge, it's the greatest cover-up. This is the mass poisoning of our country. Now, biosludge, what is it? It's human sewage. It's the collection of all the pollutants from a city. It's all the industrial waste that gets flushed down the toilet. Everything goes into this raw sewage situation. They take that raw sewage. Every city does this, including Austin, where we are. and they dump it in the countryside. This is cities polluting the countryside with toxins that are outrageous. And
so the cities are literally crapping on the country, folks.
Absolutely. Literally doing that. And I've completed all the primary photography and interviews with all the experts, former EPA scientists who blew the whistle and who were fired. We've got a film coming out. There's no revenue in it. It's at biosludged.com. It's going to be released for free. We've got all the scientists blowing the whistle on this.
You know what's crazy, though? People put stuff out for free, and we do it, too, and then they don't appreciate it. Maybe you say you're putting it out free for a week or something, or because, you know, this needs to be celebrated when we need funding, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, we've got funding sources like you do, product lines and so on, but this is something that we feel this is urgent for America.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you should put it out for free. It just, sometimes though it doesn't, like, it doesn't have the same pizzazz if it's free. I don't understand it.
No, I know, but look, there's a bioterrorism aspect to this too. It's not just the chemicals. It's not just the heavy metals.
The runoff, the stuff that's turning the frogs.
You combine all of the feces and all the viral strains and all the bacteria of an entire city. You put it into a pile, and you dump it out in the countryside. The birds get into it, and they spread the viruses. You know why we're having so many weird diseases? You got eye bleeding disease now happening, spreading. It's an epidemic across America. It's because there is this mass poisoning. It was approved by the Clinton administration EPA back in the 1990s.
I remember, and they were like, Hawaii, biosludge, when I first heard about it. They make it in Hawaii. It's sewage. Right. Putting the sewage next to Hawaii, all the chemicals, all the toxins, all the stuff you dump down the drain, all the gasoline, all the runoff, all of the particulate. And then, as you said, they admit over 100 million people got SV40 and ended up dying from that cancer virus. They admit they're not even cooking this sludge. These viruses and things can stay in suspended animation, and they say that they estimate hundreds of millions of Indians in India have died from it, and almost the entire population is infected with one cancer virus alone, SV.
The environmental movement is a political joke because they talk about global warming and climate change, things that are a scientific hoax. They won't talk about the actual environmental crime, the greatest environmental crime of our time, which is biosludge being spread on our countryside, on our farms. It's being used in areas where we grow corn, we grow fruits, in Washington State, in Oregon.
And their argument is, to be clear, you're the expert, the argument is, and group jump in any time here, this is important, they go, hey, everybody's always used dung, but that's from cows that ate the grass that's natural. You don't take everything out of the city and then go spray it on people's crops. It's the bioaccumulation mutating the fish.
Well, they're actually selling it back to you too, right? I mean, we're making the soil out of it.
It's called recycling, but what you're doing is you're concentrating toxins back into the food supply. And we talked about the multiple vectors.
Ooh, so just like whales, it bioaccumulates from the krill up to the larger fish, and then it bioaccumulates in the whales. Oh my gosh, they're over and over again putting the toxins on the food, feeding it again to super bioaccumulate.
There's even more, Alex. One of the main chemicals that's used in agriculture today is called atrazine. It is called, in the scientific literature, a chemical castrator. This is the gender bender. You've talked about it, and you were attacked, I believe, for talking about atrazine, but you were right on. Atrazine and these other chemicals, they go back into the food supply, back into the water supply, and they feminize men across America. This is a scientific fact. It's not debatable by anyone who is actually informed about science.
Oh, even PBS did a study and said the gay frogs are real. Why does it makes a lot of them hermaphrodites, others deformed, but generally it makes them act female, and then the males try to have sex with each other and then leave the females alone. So why does it particularly do that?
Well, there's the hormone sensitivity it kicks in at parts per trillion concentrations of a contaminant. So where a lot of health effects require maybe much higher concentrations of exposure, such as heavy metals at parts per million, which is 1,000,000 times higher than parts per trillion, by the way. But hormone systems are sensitive at parts per trillion. So it takes a very tiny amount, Alex, of atrazine or glyphosate or another chemical, right, Ed?
Yeah, endocrine disrupting chemicals.
It disrupts.
You know why you guys are so important on this? Trailblaze talking about this for decades and helped me understand it. And that is when you look at Colbert or the other shows or mainstream news that attacks me, every attack is about, oh, he claims they're putting stuff in the food and water to make you feminine. And then you read their own documents. The White House science czar under Obama, they admitted the plan when he wrote the book in the 70s, Eco-Science. So we're attacking their main plan.
It's all in the scientific literature. Alex, we are now publishing science.news, by the way. which is just all the scientific literature that supports exactly what we're talking about. They try to say that this is not science. It's all over the literature. We have a whole team that harvests 20 science stories a day. And we cover this. The gender bender chemicals are real. The mass feminization across America is real. You know, this is happening right now, and it's irrefutable. I run a mass spec lab. We are experts in pesticide analysis and detection. We had a major global food company come to us and want us to validate a new food contamination method development. We are well known now in the food contamination industry. I wrote that book, Food Forensics, you know. It was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. We are experts in food contamination. I can tell you that what you said is true. The food is a vector, a weapon that's being used against masculinity, against fertility. You mentioned that in the last segment. The infertility, the depopulation.
Then what's the headline for this to get to people? Like emergency warning, scientific journals confirm plan to sterilize you. I mean, how do you get through to people? This is happening.
The problem is that so much of the population has been chemically softened up. Their brains have been carpet bombed by things that we're talking about.
Even if you don't want to take Prozac and Ritalin and the thousands of drugs, it all goes into the sludge, is put on the crops.
Yes.
You eat it again.
Yes.
The heavy metals. Good God.
The water treatment centers in the cities don't remove these chemicals.
And notice under California regulations, they get waivers on everything.
Of course. Of course. And this biosludge is dumped in forests where it runs off into the rivers, which is used in the water supply for the city downstream.
And then they wonder why, just in the last decade, I guess it's the sludge since the Clintons, they say, we don't know. We've made industry a lot cleaner in the big factories, but suddenly the contamination in the fish and frogs and stuff's worse than ever.
Yeah. Yep. And there are thousands of contaminants, and the EPA only requires testing for 4 possible contaminants. I think only 2 viral strains. There are thousands of viral strains.
Well, wait a second. Isn't the EPA supposed to protect us?
The Environmental Pollution Agency?
Well, let's explain. They've proven, just search engine it in major studies, SV40 is in every major sewage system of the world. It's one virus, guaranteed, that's killed hundreds of millions of people globally. And then no one even knows that most cancer is viral.
The biosludge industry is doing to America what a bioterrorist could never hope to accomplish.
They're doing what Hitler could never have dreamed of by stealth. We'll be back with this critical information. Please spread the word now. All right, Alex Jones here with the Health Ranger, Mike Adams, and, of course, Dr. Grib. And you're saying such bombshell stuff, and I'm jumping in and interrupting, which is okay. But I'm going to actually put the camera on you guys for this segment and let you guys host and just get more into this, more into what you discovered in the vaccines. Again, how they give it protection. They allow them to put whatever they want into it. What with your big lab, CWClabs.com, you've discovered. And then also a plug for iodine. We have Great X2. It's the missing link. We believe it's the best iodine out there. And it's very absorbable and has done amazing things. It's just one of the missing links. We've got footage here, again, at one of your labs when we just put it into a peaker dish, heat it up to 100 degrees, and it turns into a purple gas. It's amazing. And that's what's in the X2. 40% off at InfoWarsLife.com when you get it with Secret 12. That's the new special. And listen, we sold out of a lot of our products, and now it could be weeks or months till they all come back in. It's going to be months till they all come back in. But even though X2 and Secret 12 are very close to selling out, we're doing 40% until it sells out, because I want to incentivize you to try X2 and to try Secret 12 and to see what pure good things from Mother Nature can do for you. They're 40% off together as a combo, InfoWarsLife.com, and you're funding an operation that's having great effects and is under attack. You know if an organization's good by their deeds and their track record, and if they're under attack by the bad guys. And we are under unbelievable assault. We're not whining. We thank you for your hopes, your prayers, spreading the links, the articles.
And if I could say, Alex, this nutrition is not just about protecting your body or your reproductive organs in the case of iodine. It's about protecting your mind. Literally.
Which is the gateway to the spirit.
You know, they have people intoxicated in the classic definition. The status quo, the poisoning of the food supply, the poisoning through vaccines, they have people intoxicated. You need to be detoxicated, in essence, if I can twist those words like that. What it means is you have to have nutrition that occupies all the receptor sites in your endocrine system, in your neurology, so that these toxins don't have as much opportunity to interact with your brain cells and your immune system cells and your gut cells and so on, right, Ed?
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up another thing, Mike, and I know you've been studying this very closely, but if you look at the news, it's not being widespread reported, but we have a massive flu epidemic going on right now in the United States. Hospitals are becoming packed full, and it just
everybody in the office that took it got it.
It just so happens that if you look at the swine flu, you always have to ask yourself, well, why all of a sudden is this year this big, huge epidemic with the flu? Not only are they doing hexavalent flu vaccines where they're putting 6 who knows what viruses in there, and if anyone goes online, they'll realize real fast that it's impossible to do an influenza vaccine because it replicates differently every time. But
let's hit your body with 6 different ones at once.
Yeah,
that's the equivalent of 6 vaccines.
Right. But it just so happens we have billions of boxes of Tamiflu stored from the swine flu that they have to get rid of, that they've paid for. So what's your take on all this stuff that's happening?
Tell folks what you found with the vaccines.
The vaccine narrative that's pushed out there is quack pseudoscience. They know that their viral strains are wrong. They're not hitting the target. They say then that even if it's the wrong strain, it will help reduce the severity of your flu symptoms. Total nonsense, no scientific citations whatsoever. The CDC fabricates its flu deaths, by the way, to promote vaccines. It's all nonsense. The truth is that you could take some simple nutrients, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, that boost your immune system.
By the way, I don't want to knock on wood, but since I've been taking X2 and the other products from InfoWarsLife.com, literally, I can't remember the last time I've had a fever in like 4 or 5, 6 years. This is insane.
Yeah, it just so happens that all the doctors are prescribing Tamiflu.
Yeah, look, I haven't had the flu in 15, 20 years. Never get a vaccine shot. Never get the flu. You're probably in the same boat, right?
Same.
How do we do that? Well, you activate your body's natural immune response.
But the Canadian study admitted it. You take the flu shot, it doubles your chances of getting the flu next season because it lowers immunity.
Yes, even worse than that, a CDC-funded study recently admitted that flu shots cause spontaneous abortions in women. And now, what are they pushing flu shots onto? Pregnant women. 20 years ago in medical school, they said never give flu shots to pregnant women. Now it's part of the narrative. Alex, is part of the infertility push. It's the depopulation push. Think about it. They can inject you with toxic mercury and abort your baby at the same time, and you don't even need a trip down to Planned Parenthood.
And here's the thing. We're not just saying this.
It's true.
We're not just saying it. Until 7 years ago, it was on the insert. Don't give a pregnant woman the shot. They removed it off the insert. It skyrockets the amount of miscarriages. They admit it.
It's admitted. It was a CDC-funded study.
And they're killing the babies in front of you.
They are.
They are murdering your baby. Forced abortion, just like China, but here they do it by stealth. In fact, here's the headline. Hospitals caught carrying out stealth abortion of women, or medical clinics caught carrying out stealth abortions using flu vaccines, CDC study.
And, the vaccine industry laments the fact that they cannot get African Americans to take more vaccines. This is a big obstacle to them. They want more black folks taking vaccines. They love it. The black folks remember Tuskegee. They remember the NIH-funded medical experiments on black folks. They remember what happens if you trust the government to inject your body with something that's a mystery cocktail.
Everybody knows you get sick when you take them.
That's already been. Our own military has been used as test subjects for years and years.
You were in the military.
Absolutely.
Everyone I know that was in the military said, we remember when people died in the unit taking it. We remember when people's kids in the unit died, at the government nurseries taking it. People in this building have lost children. I mean, this is incredible.
So we now have, this is bombshell stuff, Alex. We've got a mass spec instrument called the time of flight mass spec instrument. We are accredited in our laboratory. We are now running vaccines, and we can determine the molecular formulas of all unknown molecules in those vaccines using state-of-the-art mainstream science. That instrument alone is like $400,000 just for that instrument. We are going to open source publish the molecular formulas of everything that we find in common vaccines, and it is going to break the wall of pseudoscience of the vaccine industry. That's coming out soon.
So is this basically a real-time laser scan of molecular structures, a revolution in being able to identify things quicker, similar to the CRISP system in gene sequencing?
No, this is not a laser-based system. This is a liquid chromatography mass spec time-of-flight system. So it uses liquid first, and then it uses an actual vacuum flight tube to boost molecules through a flight path, and the timing of how long it takes for them to go through that flight path determines the accurate mass of the molecule.
Oh, that gives you the reading on it.
Then we know
there's no lasers involved.
There's no lasers in this case. There are other laser instruments, but ours is a mass spec time of flight instrument. The bottom line is we can reverse engineer for the first time. We're the only lab in America willing to do this because other labs are government funded.
So you're going to go in and find out what they're really creating and what's in there.
Absolutely. That's why we're armed.
I'm going to let you guys host the next segment. I'm going to leave. Hold on, I'm going to leave the room next segment because I won't be able to shut up. I want you to really take the floor and get into this in depth, start over, go through it all. But here's the bottom line. They've admitted with the H1N1, what was it, 6-7 years ago, the next year they said, oh, we put a simulant in vaccines that was basically that, a simulant to track viruses. So they admit they're experimenting, and I know they've threatened you and others saying, don't go in, that's our trademark or that's our patent. Don't look at what we're putting in there, right. And we've got government protection saying we can hurt you. That's crazy. They're saying, don't look at what's in this.
Yeah, and they don't tell you the real ingredients that are in there. But what they admit to, as you know, Ed, they admit there's MSG in vaccines, there's squalene, which is an inflammation-causing substance. There's mercury, there's aluminum. We know these. And there's also aborted human fetal tissue, by the way. It's listed by the CDC in their vaccine information. Aborted human fetal tissue.
Well, you know what? It's critical because they need that from what I've read. That's what they use as a viral carrier with these different classes of viruses that we know are hormone-related, where they embed in your tissues and then don't bloom until you hit 50 or 60 years old when they want to get rid of you. Then the viral cancer activates.
You know the baby body parts scandal of Planned Parenthood. They take the baby body parts. This is real. This is sick, but it's real. They grow the baby body part tissue in vats to create human tissue. They use baby parts because they grow more quickly. They infect them and let them fester with toxic diseases, very dangerous diseases like smallpox and others. And then they take that and they grind it up, they filter it out, they put it in a bottle, and they inject it into you.
That is so satanic.
That's exactly what they do, and this is the vaccine industry. It is recycling human babies, and mostly black babies, which no wonder the black community doesn't want to be injected with this stuff. They don't want their own babies ground up.
That goes into black people.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, though,
Planned Parenthood,
all the black leaders are like Maxine Waters. Oh, you're the white guy next to you. He's the devil. Meanwhile, the true Satanism is taking place. You're coming back. Mike Adams is hosting next segment. I'm going to go watch in the control room because this is important. Man, I got to say, the return of the Health Ranger is amazing. And he's so on target. Mike Adams, naturalnews.com, CWClabs.com, and so much more. And you know, he's been attacked with whisper campaigns and disinformation and ops and things we've learned about now from the major intel I've gotten from the Trump administration, you name it, because we're really trying to restore the Republic here, and we're rolling up the Clintons' network and their people, and it's really, really bad. But anyways, you guys have the floor of this segment and the next. Go ahead and host. Take over.
Speaking about the Trump administration, just real quick before we get into this, Ed, I offered to take over the EPA's nationwide testing of the entire U.S. water supply for heavy metals, to do it for $1 a year so that Scott Pruitt could fire half the EPA, who are quack science traitors to America. No wonder so many of them finally quit. But the EPA is a junk science organization. We can do the testing for all the water samples nationwide here in Texas, and I'll do it for $1. $1, Alex. All they got to do is get us the samples. We'll do the testing.
That's really where government needs to go. I mean, look at Trump giving his money back. I mean, you have so many people that would just volunteer, that actually care about the United States and care about the world and care about the environment. I mean, you could literally gut the government. I would volunteer my own time. I mean, we're working our butts off for years and years and years trying to get this information out there and trying to create change, because that's our passion. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to pay people in the government a lot of times. You can just have people that really care about taking care of these things and cleaning up the world and cleaning up the environment.
Everything where the government spends money on science, they cover it up. They get results and they hide them. Why isn't the FDA releasing results about contaminated foods that they find? Because they spot check everybody. You know, you've been tested. My operation has been tested, all clean, but they find stuff that's dirty. Why don't they tell the public about it? Why doesn't the EPA tell the truth about the radiation in the water supply or the chemicals in the water supply?
By the way, tell them how much that's gone up on average.
Well, I don't have the latest numbers, but
they even have like CBS News locally test the water, and they go, it's huge. 300 times this and 200 that. I mean, it's
there was a report about a year ago that came out in you probably know about this, Mike, in somewhere in Europe. They said a gallon of water contained the equivalent of 1 Prozac. And that's another thing right now. You know, I'll talk about all this mental disorders, and they're doing mandatory mental screening on children. They're diagnosing 2-year-olds with bipolar disorder. Most of the antidepressants and the anti-anxieties and all these antisocial, anti-mental medications are based in fluoride, and that goes back to biosludge. When you look at the amount of stuff that's flushed down a toilet, I mean, how toxic is people's poo these days?
Yeah. Well, see, this is the whole...
Look at that headline. The government allows 250 chest x-rays a year to be in your water.
Unreal. That
equivalent. But you remember, I want you to get into the vaccines, too, what you're finding in them.
Yeah.
Well, the big news on vaccines is that we're reverse engineering them. We'll have results, you know, in a few weeks or a few months, depending on how many vaccines we test.
You're telling me off air you're finding insane stuff.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go public with everything that we're finding yet, but we have the technology. We are an independent science laboratory. We are accredited. We have our own funding. We don't get any money, not a dime from government, no university, nothing. And we're doing great science. You know, we are a mainstream recognized laboratory at this point. We're probably one of the few independent science labs that's willing to tell the truth about this, just like independent media, right? This is independent media, willing to tell the truth where CNN is lying. Well, what about independent laboratories? That's where my focus is. You know,
I've heard rumors that they might be putting nanoparticles in vaccinations that they can use with the 5G, with that are activated with electromagnetic frequencies. Would you be able to see or identify anything like that?
We can identify molecules between the range of 100 to 1,700 Daltons. So as long as it is a molecule made of the table of elements, we can see it. You know, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, you name it, mercury, lead, we can find it, we can reverse engineer it, and we're going to list all these results publicly and let the public crowdsource what is this stuff. Because we don't know the names of those molecules, we don't know the chemical names, we just know the chemical formulas. That's what this instrument allows us to do.
But listen to this. Okay, so all of these people that have the flu out there right now that are suffering from the flu and that have taken the vaccines and that haven't taken the vaccines that have just caught it, they're all running to the doctor's office and flooding the hospitals, and they're getting put on Tamiflu. What is your reaction to that, or your response to that, considering the fact that USC about a few months ago came out with a study saying 3 days of water-only fasting actually regenerates the immune system and produces immune cells, which means, I mean, Mike and I have been in the natural market for years and years and years in the healthcare. I've never come across anything that you can take that within 72 hours you're going to regenerate your entire immune system and produce immune stem cells.
No, you need to actually challenge your immune system by exposing yourself to the real flu at some point, but with the nutritional support. That's how your body builds antibodies that are powerful and strong. Think about it. A vaccine is trying to get your body to make what you might call artificial antibodies, or not quite as strong antibodies, because it's a weakened viral strain, right? The virus in the vaccine is usually weakened. Sometimes it's live. That's why sometimes people get the flu from the flu shot, but usually it's weakened. They do that with ultraviolet light, by the way. It's called a denatured viral strain, or RNA fragments. Now, your body is going to have a better response to an actual infection. In fact, you will usually be asymptomatic. You won't even have symptoms of the flu. Your body builds antibodies naturally. Like if I test your blood and my blood right now, we've all got antibodies to every flu strain for the past 10 years, but we never got the flu, right?
Yeah, so what is the root cause of our bodies not being able to produce antibodies, right? The immune system is in the gut, so you have the attack on the gut, and then you have the amount of stress people are under with all the negative influence from the mainstream media. So all of these things are just suppressing the ability to produce naturally the antibodies needed. But how do you produce an antibody to a hexavalent vaccine that's injected into you?
Well, your body has to do 6 times the work, right? So I've seen doctors say they have a patient come in who's sick right now with the flu, and the doctor will say, oh, you need a flu shot right now. That is quack medicine. It takes time for your body to build antibodies. Even if you think the vaccine works, getting a vaccine while you're sick is such quackery. Those doctors should have their medical licenses stripped. They have no idea what they're talking about, even if you think the vaccine works.
Well, actually, the proper way that the body develops antibodies is not from being injected, but from breathing in.
Natural exposure.
Natural exposure through the skin, the mucous membranes, and stuff like that.
But here's the other thing. You know, as much as 25% of your DNA exists for you to fight off pathogens. You have a blueprint for survival against bacteria, fungi, as well as viral strains. But you can't activate all that DNA unless you've got the right nutrition, right? So that's where foods and superfoods and the right nutrients and extracts and everything comes into place, the right minerals. If you don't have all of that, this perfect blueprint that you have for health can't function. You can't even, you can't fight off the flu if you're nutritionally suppressed. And then they add the stress of fake news, CNN, and they add the stress of all the hatred. Hatred, by the way, if you're walking around seething with hatred, you're immunosuppressed.
Absolutely.
And that's what the left is today. Where's the outbreak the worst right now? California. They're setting up tents and war zones and everything, triage in the hospitals. People are walking in sick as they've ever been. They're all stressed out and they're sick and they're malnourished. The answers are just nutrition.
We've been saying that for a long time, is just cleansing the body, and everybody has a self-healing mechanism. This is another deep, dark secret of the medical community, is that they never want you to find out that you have the power to heal yourself. They never want you to know that by cleansing the body, by cleansing the liver, by cleansing the chemicals and heavy metals out of your system, by supporting the gut and healing the gut and eating good organic live foods, that is the secret to preventing the aging process, to healing the body.
Okay.
He always has some special drink every time I see him.
Heaping tablespoon of turmeric powder, heaping tablespoon of broccoli sprouts extract high in sulforaphane. Look up sulforaphane, look up turmeric, look up curcumin. There was a documented case, I think it was in the British Medical Journal.
Where it reverses cancer.
We reverse cancer just from curcumin and
main medical journals, and they fight. And here's the deal. None of us are perfect. I was in really bad shape 5 or 6 years ago. I went a lot better. The point is, just try X2 high-quality iodine. Consult your physician if you want. Look up iodine and IQ. Look up fertility. National Institutes of Health. Iodine deficiency may reduce pregnancy chances. NIH study. They're lowering it and everything so you don't get it, while admitting, because there's some good scientists in the government, that you need it. And X2, from our research that Dr. Group developed, is the purest, cleanest, healthiest, most absorbable type. Survival Shield X2 available at InfoWarsStore.com. 40% off when you get it with our other best-selling product, Secret 12. And then you're helping fund the entire operation as we fight the globalists. It is a total win-win. Pollen Blocks, our newest product, it's 50% off. I want you to try that as well. Super Male Vitality is also comboed with some other products for 40% off. Those are the new specials. I want to thank you all for your support. You are the folks that make it all